Hello there. Welcome to StreetSmart Wisdom. We are privileged and pleased to have Dr. Harville Hendrix and Dr. Helen Hunt as guests today. And now we're going to talk about their new old book. Is it an old new book, or is it a new old book? Getting the love you want. And I think this is the newer version that you're kind of just re-released. So tell me about that.
So you want to start? So I'll launch it. So last year, 2018, was the 30th anniversary of Getting the Love You Want. So we decided, and the publisher decided, that this would be the third. Like every decade, it has a new cover and has a new preface, and the publisher wanted to do that again. And we've updated it a little, but this time we have experienced a rather substantial deepening of the source of Imago Therapy and the relational model. And we decided that we would virtually edit it all the way through. So it's not a new book in the sense that we just rewrote it, but we edited nearly every page to make sure there was consistent presentation of the shift to a purely relational model rooted in a theory of connecting that was rooted in quantum field theory. So that's sort of the new book.
Okay.
In this new book, we have a new definition of a relationship.
Yeah.
Most people think a relationship is two individuals who have a history, and so they have something to talk about because they have a history. And relationship isn't very well defined. Actually, we take pains to say that a relationship is two people and the space between them.
Mm.
And to have a healthy relationship, it's not about one person or the other person. That doesn't constitute a good relationship. What constitutes a good relationship is the quality of the space between the two people. And Harville simplifies it and says, when there is safety in the space between, two people connect. They feel safe. They sort of like the way they're looking at each other. The tone of voice is, they relax because they use tone of voices that allow them to relax. If they need something, they'll ask respectfully for it. He says there are no put downs, or like, if one of them puts the other down, the other person gets anxious. And they thought, gosh, I feel put down. And then what's going to happen next? And so the lower brain gets anxious. When there's anxiety in the space between, the connection's ruptured. They don't feel safe. What we have crystallized are three things that can keep the space between two people safe. And with safety, they connect. And the three things are, shall I do the three things?
Please do, you're doing great.
The three things are, number one, recognizing that the person you're with may have issues from childhood. And you need to know if the person you're with, be it someone in your family or someone at work or wherever, if they act like a jerk or they really bug you, maybe they have issues with their childhood. And it'd be important to understand why the person acts that way, and why they think the thoughts they think. And we talk about shifting from judgment to curiosity, to discover why someone acts the way they do. Maybe it's their childhood issues. Number two, if the two people will use dialogue and take turns talking and listening, that helps people connect. Because master talk doesn't feel good to anybody. If one person goes, here is my opinion about things, like it or not, well, the other person doesn't feel very safe. So we invite people to shift from master talk to mutual listening. And what is your thing? Better listening.
Better listen.
Yeah, I love that name. We teach people to listen better. The third thing is we suggested to people that they make a commitment to zero negativity. And that doesn't mean they can't bring up the things they're irritated with. But our process teaches two people to bring up their frustrations with each other in a way that lands more safely with one another. And so there's a process, and you learn that process, and then maybe you shift from expressing frustrations to learning to ask for what you want. And you ask for what you want with sender responsibility. Short sentences, kind tone of voice, kind look in your eye.
Wow, that's a master class in 3 sentences.
Yeah, it is, and what's gotten clear, I think, in the book, and there's one thing that I would add to what you said, is that removing negativity is not negotiable if you want a thriving relationship.
Say that again. I want to make sure that I'm recording. I'm recording. Yes. Okay. Say that again.
Zero negativity is non-negotiable for a thriving relationship. So if you want to really thrive, you have to sacrifice negativity. And what Helen just said, but that doesn't mean you give up your power. Doesn't mean that you can't get what you want. You have to learn how to ask for it in such a way that doesn't put your partner down. And that's a skill that has to become an art. So then the fourth thing that is on the list now, and we posit that if you do these 4 things, you'll have a relationship you couldn't dream about. And if you don't, you'll have the nightmare you're living in. And so make a choice. But if you want to go somewhere, you have to do what the conditions are. You have to pay attention to the price of getting there, and the prices are. And then the positive thing is that we thought for years, and we worked on zero negativity in our own marriage for probably a decade, before we discovered that it wasn't enough to go zero negative. You'd think it'd be enough. But we began to learn more about the brain, and that the brain is fundamentally paranoid, and negativity is its natural orientation to the world. It suspects that you're out to get me rather than you're out to care for me. So when you take negativity out, the brain then doesn't know what to do, and so there's a void and not much progress. So we learned that if you replace negation with affirmation, and the brain now has something to do. So when it gets scared, instead of going negative and trying to protect itself, when there is negativity, you go affirmation. And as Helen said, curious first. So what is going on around that behavior? That is, you left the garage door open, and that makes the house vulnerable. Can you say what was going on with you that the garage door was left open, instead of you left the goddamn garage door open again? And you produce different neurochemistry with those 2 responses. And you want cortisol, then criticize. You want endorphins, then affirm. And so you affirm, and the affirmation has to become as frequent as eliminating negation. So every day.
Is that the step 4?
That's step 4.
Is taking out the negation and replacing it with affirmation.
With affirmation. And that could be anything like, thank you for the cup of coffee, or I appreciate how well you're responding on this interview and articulating answers to the questions.
Now,
Any,
can this even work decades into a relationship or a marriage? I mean,
works everywhere. Works everywhere. That is, what we discovered, marriage is simply an intensified micro social structure in which the dynamics in a marriage are identical to the dynamics in any human interaction anywhere, which is they start off well, they go bad, and you try to spend the rest of your life fixing them, and you fix by either leaving or changing. So marriages work that way. Your relationship with your employee works that way. With your son works that way. Schools and teachers, it all works the same way. There's always this attraction, then this conflict, because difference shows up. And then you have to transcend difference, and dialogue helps you transcend difference. So those four things: empathy, structured conversation, zero negativity, and chronic affirmations.
So, Steve, I noticed your eyes got big about you really think like this can, like people are going to do this? And
well, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about personally.
okay. And you don't have to. Believe me, you don't have to, and you can have the relationship you have. That's fine. But we think that if people do this, they'll be surprised at the results. And mainly, we think houses and families and houses all around need to do this. Like, do it with your kids. Your kids should do it to you. Like, it should be in family and houses everywhere. We actually believe, Steve, and don't fall out of your chair, okay? Don't fall out. We believe that in the houses of Congress, when the legislators begin to discuss, debate, and vote on a bill, they might believe they're going to vote a different way than others in the House of Congress, which is fine. There are two parties and people are going to vote and they'll vote differently. That's fine. But we think that at the beginning of every session in the House of Congress, that everyone should turn next to the person they're sitting to. Everyone should turn
to the person
next
they're
person
sitting next to. Yeah.
And they should make time to share an appreciation. That as a group, they have 2 minutes, 3 minutes to share an appreciation. The other person mirror them back. And then they take turns, and the receiver sends an appreciation about something. And
Phenomenal. Wow.
they take 5 minutes, and they'll vote differently. That's okay. But the person they're sitting next to isn't evil. There's not nothing good about them. They do vote differently, but that doesn't mean you can't find things you can appreciate about them too. It's sort of a phrase, what you focus on is what you get. If all you focus on is they're such idiots and like they're such morons, like that's who you'll get in your life.
And I think another
acting that way.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. That when you connect beyond your differences, then the differences are mitigated by the connection. But if you polarize around your differences, the differences are enhanced because the brain is designed to protect itself. So I'm not going to give in on this. But if we can connect, so I feel safe with you, then I can rethink my position. And then you rethink yours, and we start talking about that. We create an outcome that neither one of us could arrive at by ourselves. So that's called creative collaboration, rather than polarizing opposition, which characterizes most governmental bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to do, is get into the world, this safe conversation process.
I think the last thing I would add to sort of the theory or the wisdom of the theory is that say you're in Congress and you're feeling anxious or mad or like you don't know how the vote's going to turn out and you're feeling anxious or whatever, that and the person next to you turns around and gives you appreciation because that's the process. They have to do it. When someone looks in your eyes and uses a kind tone of voice and gives you an appreciation, your neurochemistry changes. And as you, Steve, have probably studied, and a lot of your listeners know, that when people are anxious, they function in the lower brain. And in the lower brain, it's my way or the highway. Like I win, you lose, like fight, flight, or freeze. Like if people are anxious, they want to get out of here and you have to change and do things my way. That's all the lower brain is capable of doing. So people who live in the lower brain have pretty miserable relationships. But if they're made, if you share appreciation and the more safe they can feel, then the neural pathways, you can move your thinking into the neocortex. And it's only when you're in the neocortex can you find win-wins where both of you win, or where you can collaborate or cooperate. That is not a function of the lower brain, the reptilian brain. It's only a function of the higher brain. So everyone wins when everyone tries to keep each other in the upper brain. And it only happens when people feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
If they feel anxious, their lower brain just automatically goes off.
That is phenomenal how just even something as simple as tone
Yes.
in communication, there's a scientific basis, and the reptilian brain kicks in and you get me the bleep out of here, and
Can't help it.
and it's and you know, it's not personal, it's scientific.
No.
Your whole body takes over.
Right.
Wow, that's kind of simple and profound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I describe Harville. Like he knows how to simplify a lot, and it's profound.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
yeah.
we could go on, but I think that was enlightening. And so, Getting the Love You Want: A Guide for Couples is the third incarnation of this book. Is that right?
Third incarnation, 30th year anniversary. Yes.
Wow. And your website again is?
Harville and Helen, one word, harvillandhelen.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was excellent. All the best.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us on. See you down the path.